Welcome to Teaching Truth. Walking with Jesus. That's the theme for our reflections this week as we once again dive into the narrative of Matthew chapter 14. This exciting account of where Peter walks on the water with Jesus, an unforgettable experience for him and an experience which would eclipse all other experiences, humanly speaking, that he would have had. And in our reflections today, we want to think about the importance of holding his hand. Holding his hand. You see, we can never walk on water or walk with Jesus, spiritually speaking, unless we are holding Jesus' hand, unless he is with us. Let's just read again those few verses from Matthew chapter 14, where Peter got out of the boat. "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. See, with Jesus, when we are floundering, when we are sinking, Jesus does not leave us to get on with it. He doesn't, as it were, stand on the shore and sit back and wait for us to drown. No, Jesus immediately reaches out and offers his hand to us. And what is more, he catches us, he rescues us. That's what happened to Peter. Immediately, Jesus, seeing Peter's situation, seeing that he was afraid, seeing that he was beginning to sink, seeing and hearing the cries that he was making, immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. Today, if you're floundering, if you're sinking, if you know that you're going under, spiritually, humanly, mentally, emotionally, or any other way for that matter, Jesus is reaching out his hand to you. Jesus invites you to take his hand, to put your hand into his hand. And what is more, Jesus invites you to reach out a hand to others. You see, when we become Christians, when we become followers, disciples of Jesus, we are to be like Jesus. We are to be Christ-like. And so what did Jesus do? Well, Jesus reached out his hand to Peter. He offered him his hand. And therefore, what we need to do when we see people in need, when we see people who are being detracted by circumstances or who are being depressed with the wind that is in their life knocking them off course, when we see people who are afraid and fearful, and who is not fearful in terms of the current realities at this time in our world, when we see those who are beginning to sink, who just cannot cope with the sea of life anymore, when we hear those who are crying out for help, yes, it's important that we point them to Jesus Christ, the only hope, but are we humanly, practically reaching out our hand to help them. That might be a hand that just writes a little note or an email to them. It might be a hand that picks up the telephone and gives them a call. It might be a hand that goes and gets some shopping for them. It might be a hand that is at the end of an arm that just hugs them and encourages them and supports them and says, I am here. Don't doubt. We are to be Christ-like. We are to reach out a hand to other people, just as Jesus has reached out and reaches out his hand to us. Peter experienced the reality in that very desperate moment of Jesus reaching out his hand to him. And you may be in a desperate moment, a desperate situation today. Jesus has his hand outstretched to you. All you need to do is to simply, by faith, grab his hand. And Jesus will catch you, and Jesus will never let you go. Jesus will hold you fast. So today, Jesus offers you his hand. The $64,000 question is this: will you take his hand?